So we want to briefly go through how we worked with MSG, the Madison Square Garden Network, to help them with a number of betting shows surrounding their sporting telecast. We worked, Dave and myself worked very closely with the team. We're really proud to show you what we came up with. So let's get into it. So first of all, we're going to go through what the goal of this project was, how Chyron helped them achieve it, and what the result was. So the goal was, starting 1 year ago, basically today, MSG said we have a massive amount of data from DraftKings betting. Also, they have live stats and historical stats from Sport Radar that they worked with. And they said, we need to get this on air very quickly. We got to turn it around, but we don't know what solution will help us with that. So we knew Prime was the solution. Working closely with the team, we built the graphics for them, built the package based on their design, and most importantly, integrated all of the data. So how do we achieve this? With the Prime platform, especially the Prime 4.7 release that just came out a couple weeks ago, one of the key strengths is, a couple of key strengths are building for designers. It's very easy to turn around a package very quickly, and also integrating data. So that was key to the whole process, and they trusted us to help them get this done quickly, which is what we did. And the result was they had 5 betting-specific shows on the air within 3 months of NAB last year. Eventually, they also had a BetCast presentation, which was during live Rangers and Knicks games. They had all of their data coming in from Sport Radar, showing live data, live odds, live game data, along with the DraftKings live data, which was showing live odds, updating money lines, props, and that is something that we really specialize in. We have, I think, the most experience in the market dealing with these betting feeds, helping our sports clients integrate them. Dave is the senior architect, solutions architect of this product. So this is his baby. And we were both really excited to take this challenge on last year. But we knew that Prime was the platform to help us do it. So go ahead. And here you see some examples of what we ended up doing. And that will break into bottom left here. This is an example of one of the studio shows they have. On the left side, they had live sports odds. It's constantly updating. The advantage of this is that they build out their scenes, they build out their templates, they can build them out at the beginning of the season and pick who is the NBA MVP going to be, who is the Western Conference champion going to be. Set all these things in motion, select them, save them out as messages, and then all year long, they have the same data constantly coming up, updated by DraftKings. They don't have to worry about it. So you can set your show in the pregame and you're good all game. You can set your show at the beginning of the season and you're good all season. Division winners, championship winners, MVP odds, all that stuff is changing dynamically through the DraftKings API that we are integrating. So that's what you see here. You see live odds on the left side, and on the bottom here, you also have another layer, and that's another key to Prime. You can handle a multitude of layers on one channel. So in the MSG example, they have 2 Prime boxes, each with 4 key fill pair channels going out. So they have video walls going on one of their channels. They have live, full marketing reads on some of their channels. And then on 1, 2 of both their boxes, they have graphics. So they've got lower thirds, they got full screens. And in this case, you have a black L bar on the back, that's taking up one layer, and then this graphic on the left side is another layer, and then their social on the bottom is a layer. These are constantly rotating, but they're all coming from one channel of Prime, and then they had a squeeze back, and this full screen is coming from a different Prime, but the same workflow, same concept. Up top, you've got the BetCast itself, so this is live during a Knicks game. You had the game on a squeeze back, the dirty feed coming in, and then on the left side, they had graphics coming in and out. They had video input windows for boxes coming in and out. And the bottom, you see, as you see it says live there, you see the live odds coming in. So that graphic is actually one graphic that brings in Sport Radar data, which is giving you live scores and information, and the DraftKings data. So the money line, the spread, total stays on air and updates automatically. So the producers don't have to worry about it. And here's a look at the studio itself. As I said, they've got 2 different Prime machines. So you've got one Prime machine over here on the left, and this thing actually you see up on the right, the right of that screen is the playlist. So what I was saying before, where they will save out messages that they don't have to update, they save those out and put them into their playlist, and it's really easy to navigate a show that way. You can automatically let it run, just walk away and let it go and do its thing. You can also manually go from topic to topic and jump around as your presenters go from different topics. The 2 sides here, the left side was this L bar, so it's the left and the bottom, and the black backplate, that was these producers. And then the other side you can see are some of the full screens and lower thirds that you're going to see throughout. But almost all of this, whether it's a full screen or a slab OTS or a lower third, everything was bound to data. But the way that we bind the data is native inside of Prime, which is a key differentiator. That you don't have to get any middleware. You don't have to work with your data provider to give you something special. It's one company, it's us, taking the data in, dealing with any customization that's needed. So it makes it a lot easier for the client, makes it easy for us, makes it easier for the data providers as well. Everything is happening natively inside of Prime. And Dave's now going to go really in depth into what he did, taking the API from DraftKings and from Sportradar, and the advantages of how you can put that together in Prime.
So specifically, the DraftKings API breaks it down into leagues first, so all the different leagues that are available. So it kind of categorizes by sport first, and then by league. So there's a zillion different leagues that you can choose from within DraftKings. And then once you've chosen your league, then you can choose either game lines, futures, or props. Once you've chosen one of those, and I'm going to advance forward here. Here's a little bit of a snippet of the JSON that comes back from the league's API, so don't be too scared yet. Right here is the game lines, and each game line has a set of offers for each event, and then each event, each offer has an ID, a label, and a set of outcomes. And so this is for the futures right here, and this is for the prop bets.
And it's important to note that to get this on the air quickly, we couldn't ask DraftKings to customize their feed or make special exceptions for MSG. What we did was we took everything that DraftKings offered, and then we query inside of Prime. So it's important to know, literally every sport, if you want to see Korean baseball, Swedish soccer, Finnish ice hockey, it's all available. And then we help the client pare some of that down, remove some of it if they don't want it. But that's the only way to get this done quickly, is by not having to go back and forth with the data provider, have them tweak their API. It's take everything and then we filter it as needed.
So looking a little bit closer at the game lines. Once again, here's a little bit of the JSON that comes back from the DraftKings API. Here is one of the control panels that we created for one of the scenes. In this case, this is the full screen standard stat line that has the data integration. And so you can see a couple of the different controls that we can select, and we'll look at those a little bit in detail in a second. You can see the events drop down here, shows all of the different events that are available today and in the next couple of days. And this is the resulting output for this particular scene. So you can see the money line, the spread, the over-under. It's got the time and the date of the event, and also kind of a title, Nets at 76ers in this case.
And in terms of the result here, again, the goal is easy for producers, and that is what this panel does. Dave's going to show what this looks like on the output, or on the UI, but this is what the producer's seeing. It's really simple for anyone, whether you know betting or not, to just pick the league, pick the game, and it does the rest for you. That was really important to G.
So once again, looking at futures here, so you can see some of the JSON that comes back from the API. It's another list of offers. And this first offer, we can see that this is for the NBA Finals 2023, and this is for the specific offer for the finals winner. We get a control panel that looks something like this in this case. That gives us, once again, the events and the ability to choose the offer. And in this case, this was the graphic that was used to display this.
And this, all the graphics, the look is directly provided by MSG with PSDs, layered Photoshop files that our team then built out. So everything you see, the look is all MSG's, the back-end data integration is all us working.
And lastly, props for these. So these are for specific prop bets that are available for each individual event. Once again, a slightly different control panel that's available in this case. And this is the type of graphic they would use for this. So how do we make this happen in a way that is very reusable? We wanted to avoid having to create the same elements and copy them from one scene to another. And so we used base scenes to accomplish this. Base scenes are just like regular scenes, except for there is a parent scene that references to the base scene. And so this allows us to organize the common scene elements into referenced components. So each individual scene, it can reference a base scene, it can reference more than one base scene. So this allows us to change it in one area. So if we've got one base scene and we have multiple parent scenes all referencing that one, we make that one change to the base scene, all of the parent scenes get that change for free. We don't have to make it multiple times. So this allows us to separate the graphics, the control interface, and the API. So we can keep everything exactly where it should be, and there's nothing tied together that shouldn't be tied together. Within the base scenes, each one has its own control panel. There can be data objects and logic within the base scenes. We'll look at that a little bit. Each base scene can have its own set of parameters, and they can also reference project parameters, and so we use that in certain cases. For instance, when you choose a league or when you choose an event, we make a note in the project parameters to know which one that the user chose. So now when they go and load another scene, we know that that was the last league, that's the last event. Chances are they might want to at least start at that point. So it's a nice little quality of life improvement there. Replaceables, also base scenes have replaceables, and this is where we can save different elements of a scene into a message. So specifically in this case, we want to save the API IDs into these replaceables. So when we save the message, the IDs are there. This gets done all under the hood. It's not seen by the user themselves, but when the message is reloaded, we know that we have these IDs for these API calls, and we can load up the correct and current data at the appropriate time. And you can also have scripting components. So when things get a little bit more challenging, a little bit more technical, obviously we have our data object and our logic effects and components within the scene that can be used, but the scripting components allow it to be that much more technical. So very quickly here, we'll look at a few of these different elements. So graphics as well can be part of the base scene. So for instance, one of the scenes uses, most of the scenes use a couple of base scenes. So this one uses a base scene to have this kind of back plate for the lower third. It also uses another base scene that has the logos for the teams that are going to be displayed. Has another base scene that shows the team names and the score and the status of the game. And then this is the final result of the parent scene that has the specific graphics just for the parent scene, and it can just reference the rest of them, and they're all used by multiple different scenes. So once again, control panels. Each base scene can have its own set of controls, and so you can see a number of the controls that are reused by a lot of these different scenes. We've got good 20, 30 of these data integrated scenes, and they're all using the same base scene that has all these same controls in them. You can see the sport drop-down shows all the different sports that are available. Once you've chosen a sport, you get the league drop-down, and you can choose a specific league. So in this case, we got basketball. You've got all different countries available, and we've chosen NBA here. And then once you've chosen the league, you get the set of events that are available for that league. And then in certain scenes, we have the ability to choose a specific offer. So you can see money line, spread. There's a lot of different variations that are available based on the different periods of the game as well.
And again, all these drop downs are being created dynamically based on what you choose. So this is not you or even us typing this in or anything like that. It's instantly, dynamically creating this to give your producer all the options that they have.
So next we'll look at the data objects, so that each base scene can have its own data object, along with parent seeds, obviously. In this case, we're looking at the league's JSON. So we were looking at that before. It was very technical, obviously, can be a little bit scary. Within the data object, it kind of softens it down and gives you the different options that you'd want to be able to choose. So in this case, we've got our leagues API, and we can use the data object to kind of visualize that JSON. Even though it's kind of a JSON and it's a tree structure, we can kind of visualize it as a table and kind of iterate through the table, each individual row on the table. So you can see all the different leagues that are available in this data object. And this is the game lines events that are available, so you can see all the different games coming up for today and the next few days. Once we've chosen one of those games, we can actually change the custom query of the data object, and that can allow us to now drill down into a specific event for that is available in this API. So you can see all of the different offers in this case that are available. And then once you've drilled down into the specific offer that you're curious about, you can see the outcomes that are available, which is right here. Once again, logic is available, and so we can have all that logic built into the base scene. We don't have to copy that from one to another. It can be built into the base scene and made available to the parent scene, or it could be just used internally within the base scene itself. Once again, each base scene can have its own list of parameters that can be used. You can see the sport ID, the sport name, league ID, league name are kind of internally kept within this base scene. And as I mentioned before, project parameters can also be used. And so these are saved based on the last category, the last sport ID, the last league ID. They all get saved, so when we call up another scene, it gives us that nice quality of life to have the last used one. And as I was mentioning before with the messages, when we save out a message, we've got to make sure that each individual component of the API is saved correctly within the message. As I mentioned, when things get very complicated, we have a comprehensive library of different scripts that we can use to import the different API values into the scene directly. So, as I mentioned before, we can have multiple scenes. So we have a couple of different examples here. They're all referencing the base scene that has the API details. It's accessing the JSON. It's got its own control panel. And this is reused, all of this is reused on every single one of these data integrated scenes so that we don't have to make multiple changes in multiple places. Along with the DraftKings API, we also added in Sport Radar API. And there was two main parts of the Sport Radar API that we used. One of them was the box score API, and that we're using to access the real-time scores, so the actual score of the game, the status, whether it's at halftime, whether it's final, that sort of thing. So that all comes in automatically within the scenes that need it. And also the summary API. And so the summary API is used to get the real-time stats. So how many points a particular player has, or how many assists, that sort of thing can be used. Because in certain cases, they want to be able to kind of compare and contrast the current line or some specific detail of one of the bets with where the bet is actually at the moment.
An important thing to think about with this, when you have the live data, you can add triggers and events to this. So when certain criteria are met, the graphics respond accordingly. When Joel Embiid gets over 20 points, make sure you bring that graphic up. So that's all the things that having that data on hand live gives you the ability to really expand the package, make it even easier, more dynamic but make it easier for producers.
And one of the challenges here, obviously, is having the two APIs, making sure that each data is kind of relevant. So the user chooses the data based on the DraftKings API, but from there we kind of have to cross-reference and make sure that we're getting the correct Sport Radar API data that corresponds to it. And here's one more Sport Radar scene that is getting the current value of the points. All right, so let's take a little bit closer look at this in action.
Yeah, and on that picture that you see in the background, what's also we didn't focus on is the flexibility of this, and the flexibility that MSG had is they were able to use their extra channels for that video wall in the background, for instance. So this shot you see on the right side is one layer with the left, one layer of the graphics on the bottom, one layer that's the L bar, and then another layer that's the lower third, and a fourth channel on the back that is your full screen. All of that working off the same design tool, the same integration. So it's easy to do all of this in one box using multiple channels, multiple layers. So now Dave is going to jump into the fun stuff, which is looking at the UI live, and we're going to pull up live data for things that are going right now at this moment.
Okay. So let's look at these. We've got this live score data scene. And once again, this is the common part at the top here of all the different controls that are common to a lot of these different scenes. So we can see all the different sports that are available. We can see all the different leagues that are available. We can choose our category, game lines, futures, and props. Some scenes are kind of geared toward a specific category, so they will automatically start at that category. And then once you've chosen that, you've got all of the different events that are available. So in this case, we've got Hawks and Celtics tonight at 4 p.m., and here's all the current data. So we can play that to air. Load up another one. We can
notice as he's going through this, it's the same scene that he's using over and over again, just changing out one little parameter, and that gives you a different outcome. So he can save out this scene looking at Hawks Celtics, save it for later, and then save out the same scene with Knicks Cavaliers, say that as a different message, and then he brings it up when he needs it. So he can be flexible to follow what his presenters are saying, and it just gives him the speed to recall quickly, but not have to worry about the data being right, because the data is updating every moment that DraftKings is sending more data.
So I just saved out message 100. You can see that down here. It's got the current thumbnail of whatever I saved out. And I can use my keyboard, 100, enter, and use my keyboard shortcut to play that out.
And what you're seeing here is the playout user interface itself. This is what operators in the truck, in the live studio are using. Dave's actually using a regular keyboard with a number pad right now, which is great. You can use that, and you can apply all the shortcuts that you want and map out the keyboard the way you want. We also have a classic keyboard, which you can see around the booth, that will help you as well.
So once again, this is a more of a side graphic for specifically for futures in most cases. So once again, we added a couple of buttons here just to kind of quickly go from one sport to another, so we didn't have to do the sport and the league necessarily. So we can go to Major League Baseball. We can drag down the events and say, let's see who is going to win the World Series. Looks like the Braves have the edge right now over the Yankees and then the Mets. We can also come back and look at NHL. Once again, you see all the different events that are available. Let's look at the NHL Championship. And there's different offers in here. I guess some people bet on whether a Canadian team's going to win. Interesting. And they're, once again, the Bruins having a fantastic year, well in the lead. So, as we were mentioned before, I've saved out a couple of these messages already. So, I can do one, enter. This was the Hawks Celtics game, which, this was a a scene that I've used to override the data.
And actually, what Dave is showing here is really important because a lot of networks want to make sure there are times when they don't want the data to update as well. There's a number of examples. One is golf. When updates happen before you actually see it, they'll cut to a hole finishing after it's already happened. So there's times when you actually need to hold back on the data, and Dave was able to build that into the panel. But none of this is scary or confusing for producers who don't necessarily understand or know data. It's all built right into the panel, very clear labels and descriptions. And you can see this panel, there's a lot going on, but it makes it really simple for a producer who's got a lot of other stuff to worry about. They don't need to look up, they need to look up the money line, who the teams are, pick the logo. It's all triggered based on the data that we're bringing in.
And notice we added 2 checkboxes to the control panel, one for override text and one for override data. So for instance, if I were to go back to the scenes here and I load up my box 2 here, if I come down to NBA Finals and then I choose Finals MVP, notice this offer that comes in actually has this all bets action part next to it. So I might want to say, yeah, that's not exactly the way I want to see it. So I'm going to check override data. I can come in here, actually adjust the value, and now it just says Finals MVP. That's what I want it to go to air. So now I can play that, save that to a message, and that is the way that the scene is going to get imported. So the data, in this case, is all going to get updated in real time. But those 2 titles, I've chosen to override those, and I want those to save exactly the way they are in the message. So I can quickly load up a few scenes here, and I'm going to load up 50 as well. I'm going to do controls, and that brings all. You can load up multiple things in preview and send all of them to program at the same time.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Dave. So thank you all for taking the time to join us today. As you can tell, we're really proud of the work we did here, but it's only possible because of Prime and everything that it allows you to do, especially with data and design. It's only getting better. 4.7 released just a couple weeks ago, 4.8 coming out in the late summer, and that has a lot of tools specifically for live sports, which I think should excite a lot of you out there. But yeah, it's a fun tool to work with, and we really appreciate the opportunity that MSG gave us to find a solution for them, and we're happy it's worked out so well. So thank you all again for joining us.